25th of March 2023. In this news flash, I'm going to talk about things that are more of in the category of diplomacy. I'm going to start off with this cartoon. Take a good look at what you're seeing there, and that is very significant because that is exactly what's going on currently. The non-West world is busy disconnecting from the West. Now here is a list of US actions aimed at discrediting and blurring Xi Jinping's visit to Russia. 1. An information campaign stating that Xi Jinping will not come. 2. Threats against China if Xi Jinping comes. 3. Requirements for China to condemn Russia. Now, we all saw those headlines in the news and so forth, and it was in certain instances it was actually pathetic. But the Western media, they stayed true to the course and followed every instruction issued from the shithouse. 4. Requirements for China not to supply weapons to Russia. Only the West has the right to supply weapons to Ukraine. 5. Statements that any Russian-Chinese agreements will not matter. 6. Hasty organization of the Japanese Prime Minister visit to Ukraine on the day of Xi's visit to Moscow. 7. The death of Chinese workers in the Central African Republic. 8. Announcement of hasty deliveries of new weapons to Ukraine. Now, point number 7 is quite interesting. I have read quite a lot about that, and the latest information is clear that those Chinese people that were killed in Central African Republic were killed by a rebel group financed by America. 9. Declassified intelligence documents aimed at blaming China for the origin of the coronavirus. 10. We began to equip a new military base in the Philippines. Plus the standard whining about the fact that China wants to take over Siberia, a routine topic of Western propaganda. Now the problem is in 9, that coronavirus thing. There is documentation that the Russians has presented to the UN about the research on that virus that was done in the Ukraine. And there is strong evidence that it was shipped from the Ukraine to Wuhan and then released. Now the next piece of information is something that the West should actually take note of, but I am quite sure this doesn't appear in any Western news media. Nowhere you will find this. And this is important. Egypt and Turkey takes new step to restore relations. Turkey's foreign minister paid a landmark visit to Cairo on the 18th, marking the first time in 11 years that a Turkish foreign minister has visited Egypt. The two countries' relationship had deteriorated after the Arab insurgencies and revolutions erupted in 2011. Last month, Egypt's foreign minister visited Turkey for the first time in over a decade. Now, this is something to take note of. The Arab world is busy sorting their problems out. And you must never forget, the main stirrers of unrest in the whole of the Middle East, all those various terrorist groups, are financed by America. Egypt and Russia discussed the establishment of a free trade zone between the Eurasian Economic Union and Egypt, construction of a nuclear power plant in Egypt, An expansion of air service between the two countries was also discussed. Trade turnover jumped to over $6 billion in 2022, marking a 30% increase compared to 2021. This is important to take note of. And once again, this is the Chinese. They are promoting business all over the place. If the Americans talk, they threaten, they sanction, they dismiss, or they attack and they destroy. The Chinese just want to do business and they support the countries to develop, and they finance development projects in the countries in order to make the countries more successful. Contrary to the West that wants to keep the rest of the world impoverished. And this is now beginning to bite them in the back. This is unfortunate. Times are changing, but the Americans is not taking note. Egypt defends the exchange of goods and services with other countries in national currencies instead of the USD. Russia's ruble is now used for trade with Russia. Egypt is willing to sign a trade agreement with China and India and use the respective currencies. Egypt denounced the Israeli Knesset approval to allow Israelis to move into 4 West Bank settlements. The World Bank approved the $7 billion loan to Egypt over the past 7 years. Egypt has received many loans from the IMF. Now, the big thing is this. Egypt denounced the Israeli Knesset's approval to allow Israelis to move into the 4 West Bank settlements. The Arab world has had it with that conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The Arab world want peace, they want to develop. The West has bombed Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan into the Stone Age. And the Arabs are done with that shit now. They want them out. And there's a little skirmish going on in Syria between those Americans in that base and Iranian troops and Iranian supported Syrians. And the Americans announced that they did some bombing last night, and this morning I saw articles that the Syrian groups has retaliated. The Americans must go and take a look at the map and see that that little base of there in Syria is surrounded by Arab countries. And if the Arabs sort their shit out, that base is going to be terribly isolated with no proper logistic lines. So the Americans will do well to move those troops out, take them back to America with all their equipment instead of leaving the shit there like they did in Afghanistan, and get their act together and start defending their own southern border. The world is done. I'm going to make a prediction. American bases in the Middle East are going to be in severe danger pretty soon. The Americans better get out. The Middle East has had it with America. Please give me a like and subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.